Ecclesiastes chapter 2. I want to thank everybody that has joined in today. So good to have you. We ask the Lord for a word of wisdom on the lesson. Thank you, Father. Okay, so as we had discussed last week, and I'll just briefly repeat a few things. This book written by King Solomon. And the basis of the book, first of all, would be it teaches us how to live in the flesh, what to expect, how to act, how to make it easier, how to handle this flesh that we, the flesh that wraps us, and sometimes when we think about the flesh, we see that it really does cause us headaches, and especially when we get older. I was talking to Steve this morning, and the older we get, the longer it takes to heal. And so, anyway, how to live in these flesh bodies and what to expect. Also, King Solomon is trying to get our attention to the fact that if you're going to live in these flesh bodies and in this earth age, and all you think about is the flesh and how you can be happy in the flesh, well, it's going to be vanity. It's going to be emptiness. Not meaning that you can't enjoy life more abundantly in the flesh, as Christ taught in St. John 10:10. But if that's all your goal is to think about the flesh, Christ certainly in that reference is talking about living in the flesh, but having Christ as your guide, as your Lord, of course, so that life more abundantly can be throughout eternity. So that's the basis of the book. We went through that very thorough last week. So, and I would just add maybe to that before we get to chapter 2, is verse 9, chapter 1, is basically what goes around comes around. And any problems that you may have, you may think, well, nobody else has ever had this problem. Well, they have. And so, understand that. So, with that said, let's get into chapter 2 now. And continuing on the same line, let's go with verse 1 and read. King Solomon writes, chapter 2, verse 1. I said in my heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure. And behold, this also is vanity. He kind of answers the question before he even tested, but he says it's also vanity. It's almost like he already knew, but he is going to, he's saying in a way, he's saying, I'm going to test myself. I'm going to test all these worldly things, and we've talked about it. The world has much to offer, and it really does. I just got back from vacation, and it was just awesome. Had a lot of fun things to do in this earth. My. We can't obviously do it all. So the earth does have many things to offer, and the Lord wants it that way. He wants it that way. He loves His people. He didn't expect you to go this earth age, crying every day, and being sore every day. Most of our problems, as I've said 100 times, probably more, is most of our problems that we run into are what we bring upon ourselves. Again, if we go with what this book talks, even the book of Proverbs, which Solomon was involved in, we learn so much of how to act and how to live. It makes life so much easier. Okay, so here he's saying, this word prove thee, I'm going to test myself with these worldly things. Verse 2, I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what doeth it? What doeth it, we could say, what good is it? Or we could even say, what good is laughter? Again, I might add to this, Isaac, the word Isaac, our forefather. In Isaac shall the seed be called, the son of Abraham. His name means laughter. And think about it. What would we do in this world if we didn't have laughter? It does make pain a little bit easier when you can laugh about it. Laughter is the best medicine. So what does this mean then? He said, I said of laughter, it is mad. What he's talking about, don't lose your focus. If you're just concerned about earthly things and want to party and laugh, even about foolish things and just laugh all the time, without having a heavenly purpose behind it, that sort of thing, well, then, of course, it will end one day, and then, of course, it is vanity. Okay, so, again, understand this book and why it is written the way it is. 3, verse 3. I saw it in mine heart. By the way, I'm gonna interrupt myself there, because I noticed the word I again. In verse 1 it says, I said. Verse 3, I saw it. I took account, and I only went to verse, I think, 11. And of all the personal pronouns, I, me, mine, myself, I believe I counted roughly 45. 45 times Solomon, I, me, mine, myself. Not God, nothing but God. Okay? Now, that's purposed for a reason, to get to our thick heads that if your whole life is you, me, then you're going to come up empty and it's going to be vanity. You have to have a heavenly purpose. That's the reason this book was written, so understand. Now let's go to verse 3. I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life, and even of his life. Now, I want to say something here, that he says here, giving himself to wine. Of course, that would be overabundance. That's what he's talking about. In 1 Timothy 5:23, 1 Timothy 5:23, we read that a little wine for the stomach's sake is just fine, no problem. And that wine has alcohol in it. Let's not kid ourselves. Coming home from a hard day of work, you're on pins and needles for whatever reason. What are you going to pop, a Valium or meds? Well, it'd be better to maybe drink a little wine, or I could even say a beer or whatever, to calm yourself naturally. So 1 Timothy 5:23, a little. It didn't say a gallon. Understand? Okay, so when he says unto wine, he's talking about a surfeit, abundance, okay? And it says here, yet, as he's doing that, though, he says, I'm acquainting myself with wisdom. So he didn't leave wisdom, and then, of course, there's earthly wisdom, and then there's heavenly wisdom. Okay, now, earthly wisdom is a pretty cool thing. I mean, Nebuchadnezzar, that's what Nebo means, the god of learning. That was his whole life, books and learning, geography, history. Of course, now today we could add the stock market and different things that we want to learn about. But being worldly wise, you could even use street smart. Nothing wrong with that. And of course, then you have heavenly wisdom. Heavenly wisdom is what we're trying to do this morning. We're reading the Bible. This Logos, the Word of God. It is Him. Think about it. We're opening inside and looking inside God right now. I mean, really. I can be graphic and stuff. When you open the Bible, you're looking inside God's heart. You are, because we're reading about what He wants us to learn. So that's the other wisdom, and that's the much better wisdom, of course. So he's saying, I gave myself to wine, but I acquainted myself with learning. I didn't just throw that away. So understand, and I'm sure this wisdom is actually both earthly wisdom, heavenly wisdom. I would think probably in this verse he's talking about more earthly wisdom. Nonetheless, let's continue. By the way, I don't know if I brought this out or not. If you want to learn about wisdom, in fact, I'm going to turn there. Proverbs chapter 8. Proverbs chapter 8. There's 36 verses. It's all about wisdom. It's all about wisdom. Now, the chapter 8 of Proverbs, if you read it, you got to read it as wisdom is talking. Like wisdom is talking. It's certainly God, but He is wisdom. In fact, let me just read 4 verses. I'm going to do that. I'm going to read 4 verses from Proverbs 8 about wisdom. Hear instruction and be wise, and refuse it not. Don't refuse heavenly wisdom. Now this in Proverbs is heavenly wisdom all the way. Blessed is the man that heareth me, that's wisdom, watching daily at my gates. What did Christ always say about prophecy? Watch. Waiting at the post of my doors. For whosoever findeth me findeth life, and that's life eternal. For who's and shall obtain favor of the Lord. Wow, you always want that, of course. But listen now, but he that sinneth against me sinneth against wisdom. In fact, you don't want to learn, you don't care to learn. Okay, that person wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me, all those that hate wisdom, love death. Now, that's quite a statement. Okay, so let's go now in verse 4, back to Ecclesiastes, verse 4, and read. There's that I again. I made me, there's me, I made me great works, and I'm sure that he did. I builded me houses, I bet they were mansions, and many of them. I planted me vineyards. Well, where do you think he got the wine? I made me gardens. I bet they were just beautiful, botanical. And orchards, all the fruit. I bet there wasn't a fruit you couldn't, well, at least what would grow in that region, couldn't eat. And I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruits. Well, there it is. Almost like the Garden of Eden. Probably tried to mimic that. Who knows? So he multiplied his possessions on purpose. Now listen, he's doing this. If verse 1 didn't say, it says he did this on purpose. So let's say he would not have tried earthly wisdom. Then he probably wouldn't have done all this stuff. But he did. He certainly helped the economy, didn't he? I'm kind of teasing there. Okay. All this was an effort, now remember, all this was an effort to satisfy and fulfill the flesh. Remember that. And he's king of kings. I mean, not said king of kings. King of earthly kings. He wasn't the king of kings. But he was a top dog king. So remember that. He's not just a regular Joe. So when we read this, you can pretty much take, you better take what he's saying as, can I say, gospel? Okay, 6. I made me pools of water, waterfalls, to water therewith the woods that bringeth forth the trees. So here he's saying, you can almost call it an aqueduct, I suppose, or a little stream going through the woods. I can imagine how beautiful it was. Can you imagine the servants he had? And we've all been in parks where they take care, or even lawns, just someone's lawn, and they take care of it, how nice it is. I've never had anything such as this, but I do remember I had hired a person to do my lawn because I couldn't stand mowing. And so, excuse me, I would have somebody every 2 weeks come to my place, trim the yard, mow it, take care of some watering in the bushes and that sort of thing. And when I'd come home, whoa, I'd see it really did look so much better. And it satisfied me. It made me feel good inside. Well, you can imagine what he had and how beautiful this was. Okay, like I mentioned the word botanical garden. I mean, you can imagine how beautiful this thing was. So, it actually served a purpose, the stream going through to water his trees. 7. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. Also I had let me stop there. I had servants born in my house. He was the hospital. It was clean, it was good, it was way above par, okay? No problem having somebody birth a child in my home. Also, I had great possessions of great and small cattle, above all that were in Jerusalem before me. And now it says all before me in Jerusalem. Jerusalem was actually a young city at this time. Remember, David actually changed the name of Jerusalem it was Jabez, because the Jebusites used to own it. And he conquered them, and then he named it Jerusalem. That was just his father. So I think this here, when it says in Jerusalem, I really think we can go back all the way to Abraham and probably further. There's probably no one that had more possessions, whether it be Abraham or Job, than Solomon. Great wealth. 8. there it is again. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasure of kings and of the provinces. I gat me men singers and women singers, and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. Wow. Now when it says all sorts, it means about everything you can imagine. This peculiar treasure, kind of a rarity box treasure, something that you could hold and play special things that only kings and maybe individual countries would own. If you weren't a king, you wouldn't have this peculiar treasure. You wouldn't be able to have relics, ancient relics, art objects, antiques, collector items. I'm sure there was a gift from the Queen of Sheba in there. He had a relationship with her. The king of Tyre supplied Solomon with men and many things to build Solomon's temple. So you can imagine what was in that treasure box. Something that we would never see, obviously, or even those back then that weren't at that level would even could imagine what was in that treasure box. It'd be kind of neat to know that, wouldn't it? Kind of like when we think about the Ark of the Covenant, and Aaron's rod in there, and different things. How wonderful that would be. So we're talking tall cotton here, okay? Just try to imagine all this stuff, okay? And the singing and the singers, and male, female, and can you imagine the talent? Well, when I was on vacation, I went to a theater and I saw things that I couldn't believe. The voices, the music, the singers, the entertainment. It just blows you away. Again, he's taken all that in. He collected the best of the best, people and merchandise. 9. Now, but let me interrupt there. Who couldn't be happy with that? Who couldn't be happy with that? Well, let's listen. 9. He gave us the answer in verse 1, but let's continue. 9. So I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me. Okay, so he didn't become ignorant. It's written in God's Word, Romans 11:29 for one. Romans 11:29, that God's gifts and callings are without repentance. He gives it to you, it's yours. He doesn't take it away. Now, you can misuse it, you can, not use it, whatever. But even the man with the one talent, remember, he buried it. He didn't use it. And the Lord said, well, you could have put that in a simple bank for simple interest at least. He didn't even do that. So God's gifts are, in other words, God didn't take it away. The guy buried it. That was his choice. So here Solomon says, I retained my wisdom. God gave it to him. He had it. Okay, so verse 9 is simply stating that my goal was to try to be happy in this earth age, period. Okay. 10. And whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not mine heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion at my labor. I mean, my. It's just amazing how he's trying to satisfy himself. But what we'll find out, and what maybe some of us already know, is you always want to acquire more. I mean, I literally know people in my life, look back, of people that have tried to, not to Solomon's extent, because I've never met a king, but people that have tried to satisfy their fleshly life with things. I'll just say it that way, with things. And as we learned in Hebrews 11:25, that sin, and I'm not saying things nice things are wrong, I understand. But if they control your life and they become an idol, then they're wrong. But Hebrews 11:25 means we can have fun with sin for a season, but not eternally. See? Okay. So verse 11. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought. Now that took many years, by the way. He didn't build houses and mansions overnight. And on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of the spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. Wow, what a statement! What he's really saying, obviously, is there's no lasting profit under the sun. Now he's going to explain verse 11. I don't have to explain it. He's going to explain it as we read here. But he's telling us offhand right away that all of this was vanity. Excuse me one second. Okay. And vexation of the spirit. The earthly spirit, that is, I guess we could say. Almost no reason to have a spirit. That type of a spirit. Okay. 12. And I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. In other words, everything all around, good and bad. Good, bad, and the ugly. For what can man do that cometh after the king? Question mark. In other words, there's no higher than me, is what he's saying. Even that which hath been already done. Everything's repeated. Everything's repeated. There's been many men that have been wealthy, is really kind of what he's saying too. There's been many kings. David, his father, was king. Saul was king. And there'll be many kings after Solomon. Okay? His sons, for one. Well, son after son after son. And that started with Rehoboam. But, so what he's saying is, there's no thing under the sun. Okay? 13. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly. Well, that's true and obviously true. As far as light excelleth darkness. Wow. Now he's saying 180 degrees opposite, east to the west. That's basically what he's saying, in a way. And so that's quite the comparison. So what he's saying there, if you want to make a choice between having earthly things or wisdom, you better choose wisdom. Okay? That's why Christ said that the humble, the poor in spirit, God's election, are the richest people in the world. That's why he said that. We are. You are. Okay? Excuse me. 14. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. In other words, he's blind. If you don't have wisdom, you might as well be walking in darkness. And I myself perceived also that one, that word is not coming through in my Bible very well, giveth happiness to them all. And I get that right? What is that word? Event. I got an ink mark there and I can't see it. Oh, yes. Also that one event happeth to them all. So here is it not true? Would all of us say, after all the years we've lived, and I'm not trying to say we're all old here, but even if you live to 12 years old, 20, you become wiser day by day. Are you still making, I'll talk to are you guys still making the same mistakes as you did when you're 20? Probably not. Probably not. And if you are, shame on you, right? Okay? Now, we do some things, but our excuse could say, well, I'm just trying to be young again. Of course, I'm jesting. But would we all agree that we do not repeat, we try not to repeat the same mistakes over and over? And if we do, we get in trouble, and then all of a sudden we learn. Well, that's kind of what he's saying here. Wisdom is so much better than darkness. And we know that he said that I myself perceive also that one event In other words, one by individual things happen to everyone. That's what he's saying here. 15. Then said in my heart, as he pondered this, and again, this didn't happen overnight. He spent a good portion of his life doing this. What he's getting at is, don't waste your time trying to be please yourself in this earth age. I've done it. I've been there. Listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. That's what he's saying. Then said in my heart, as it happens to the fool, so it happens even to me. And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart that this also is vanity. Now let's go through that just a little bit. Not always what happens to a fool will happen to you. Not everything. Obviously, if you're wise not to do things against your body, then you're going to be healthier. Where a fool might do things against his body and he won't be as healthy, and then he'll get sick. So that's one event that you wouldn't experience. That's not really what he's saying, though. He's saying, just because I'm a wise man, and I'm going to update this from this time here to today. Wise men die. They get in car accidents. Things happen. They can acquire cancer, and they may do everything they can to stop cancer, and all of a sudden something gets them sick and they die. Now that just happens. We try to do the best to stay in shape to prevent these things, but they can happen, and they may not happen to the fool. That's really what he's saying here. There's things that can happen to me that may not happen to him, or they might happen to both of us. And so what good was it to stay in shape? Okay, you understand what he's saying here. Okay, life isn't necessarily fair in that regard. What he's saying, I think of the Tower of Siloam, where the disciples go, wow, did these 18 people that died, wow, they must have been wicked, huh? The Lord said, no. Things happen. And that's kind of what ties in on this. So let me read the verse again to kind of understand what he's really saying. Then I said in my heart, as it happens to the fool, so it happens to me. And by the way, I might interject, they both are going to die. Fools and wise die. In the end, some die sooner. And usually the fool would die sooner. Usually, but not always, see. And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart that this is also vanity. What he's really saying is life can be vanity. Well, he is saying life is vanity in the flesh. For there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever. In other words, when you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. Seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten, at least those that are dead. And how dieth the wise man as the fool? See that? Well, there it is. We're all going to die. What he's saying. Yeah, now Solomon, we all have a choice to leave, we call it the legacy. We can all leave a legacy. And that's good. We should. Did Jesus Christ leave a legacy? Oh, I guess so. I guess so. Did Abraham leave a legacy? Oh, yeah. Did Peter? Yeah. Did Job? Yes. Did Solomon? Yes. Okay, and we'd like to have that legacy being positive, would we not? There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not really what he's saying here. In the end, you're going to die. Period. And your flesh is gone. And then what happens? Your incorruptible body, we have two bodies, as Paul taught, it's called dualism in man. The other body, the real you, the eternal you, goes to the Father. We're going to read about that later in chapter 12. But the flesh, gone. You can all look at your flesh, and I'm looking at mine right now. And I can look at it and go, one day, this will be just either in a grave, or if Christ returns when I'm alive, it'll be changed, done with. So if I'm looking at myself and feeling myself, man, it's not going to be there forever. It's going to be gone. So don't put too much into it. Other than even Paul said, I think it's good to stay in shape. Certainly. I support that. And that's by following God's word, eating right, for one. I think eating right is better than even exercise, but both are so wonderful. But Paul said that it doesn't do that much good to exercise and be in such good shape if you don't know where you're going afterwards. Paul said that. Okay, so let's continue, and that's what Solomon is saying. Okay, so, and that, by the way, that remembrance, Psalms 9:6, that at the end of the millennium, which he isn't talking about here, but at the end of the millennium, well, we're all being incorruptible bodies at that time. But even at that time, those that continue to choose negative things, Lucifer, Satan, they'll be done away with, and we won't even remember who they ever were. And that's actually a blessing. I certainly wouldn't want to be in heaven knowing any of you or my friends or loved one would not make it. That would bother me for a long time. So that's why Lord is going to take that away. And think about this. Think about this being hell, because it really is the great definition of hell. It's hell, and I've done lessons on it. Isn't the burning flame, burning your flesh like a piece of bacon? That's not what hell is. Another subject for another time. But it's the burning of your soul, where there's no more remembrance. How would you like nobody ever remembers you or even anything you ever did? You didn't exist. Just think about it. You never existed. Nobody ever knew you. Whoa. I mean, I think about that. My children never even knew who I was. Now, just let that sink in a little bit. That's hell. Okay, you get that? That's the true definition. Now, let's continue. Those that want to understand hell better, I have a tape on that. But let's continue. 17. So he said here, therefore, because of all this, I hated life. As he tested it in worldly things. Yeah. Because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of the spirit. He's saying it's kind of a headache. Even all these nice things. Do you think we talked about that? I call it an aqueduct, but that stream he built, water pools to water. Do you think that went without any headaches? Well, no, it took headaches. There were things that didn't go right. There were maybe bad weather and certain things that happened. It was like, there's headaches in life. Okay, so that's what he's saying. 18, yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should have to leave it to the man that shall be after me. Now, that sounds selfish, doesn't it? Well, in a way it is. We talked last week about being able to build a business or something to give, or inheritance, whether it be money, to give your children to help them out. Here he's saying, man, whatever I end up doing, somebody else is going to just walk in there and get it. 19. And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or not? I don't want to give it to a fool. Well, I can almost guarantee you, a fool normally doesn't inherit. Now they do. I know they do. A fool, I could take this to winning the lottery. There's been some fools that have won. And that's kind of what he's saying here, I guess. Not talking about a lottery, but normally a fool doesn't inherit good things. Normally somebody wise does, but nonetheless. Yet he shall have a rule over all my labor wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This is also vanity. Really, these two verses here, 18, 19, is really rather selfish. It really is. So what if you leave it to somebody else? You should be happy. Right? Right? But again, thinking in the earthly realm, which is selfishness, that's what you would think. Okay? 20. Therefore, I went about to cause mine heart to despair. Depression. Of all the labor which I took under the sun. I tried to make myself happy. I really thought it might work, and it didn't. 21. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom, and in knowledge, and in equity. Yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This is also vanity and a great evil. Okay, there we go. And again, rather selfish. Talking about, I'm the one that had all the wisdom, and I did this, and I did that, and I figured this, and I figured that, and somebody else is going to get it that probably really shouldn't have it. Okay, 22. Or certainly didn't earn it. 22. For what hath man of all his labor and of the vexation of his heart, wherein he laboreth under the sun? Well, that's kind of a repeat. Okay, if you're going to focus completely on earthly things, then you're going to understand better what he's saying here. 23. For all his days are sorrow, and travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This is also vanity. What you can really kind of see here too is that in the flesh, even if you're not sick, but it's still heavy, certainly feel the older you get, compared to the incorruptible body, compared to that body, this all starts making more sense also. Now, you can be even healthy in this flesh, but you realize that there's times where you're hungry and you're not somewhere to buy food. Or you thought your tank was full of gas and you run out of gas and you're tired and you're in the middle of nowhere. There's frustrations out there. 24. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw that it was from the hand of God. 24 sounds like a contradiction in terms to what we read prior. But he realizes that, you know what? God put us in this flesh for a purpose. I'm just giving you the report of if you try to just live in it only, it's bad. But certainly God purposed us to be in the flesh for a reason. And we can now. Christ hadn't paid the price yet. We're 900 some years ahead of Christ or before him. So he is saying that God put us here, and you are better off. You're better off certainly to follow the rules than not follow the rules. 25. For who can eat, or who else can hasten hitherto more than I? Again, given his credentials as king. 26. For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight. God did that a long time ago, and he decided what to give you. Wisdom and knowledge and joy. You might add, I might add to wisdom, knowledge, and joy that you have peace. But to the sinner he giveth travail to gather and heap up, that he may give him that is good before God. In other words, Deuteronomy. If you follow God's laws, Mosaic law, you're going to receive blessings. If you don't follow my laws, you get cursings. Now that's just as simple as it is. Follow God's laws, blessings. Don't follow God's laws, you get cursings. Right there it is. We just read it. Right there. How could anybody say that the law is dead? No, the law is alive and well. And the barometer to know if the law is alive or well, you want to test if the law is well or not? You want to test if the law is dead or not? Start breaking Mosaic laws. Just start breaking those laws. You will find out in a hurry that, oops, wow, I'm receiving curses. Wow. Yeah, that still works. Just like gravity, it still exists. Okay. Do you know that when Christ said that we are to love the Lord with all thy heart, soul, and mind, and to love thy neighbor with thyself, that's a golden rule? Those two things are the foundation. That's the foundation of the Old Testament laws. That's what the first 4 laws in the Old Testament are about honoring God, like Christ said. The last 6 are about honoring men. That's the golden rule. Christ taught that the law is alive and well with those 2 statements. I don't know if somebody needed that, but I throw it out there. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the lesson today. Make sure to share the gospel with somebody this week. Will you do that? You'll be blessed for it. Talk next week.